The sky above Eltara 4 was covered with dark smoke. Explosions echoed in the distance. The ground shook every few minutes as heavy machines marched across the battlefield. The war between the Alliance and the AI sovereignty had reached its most dangerous point. Caelthrix, a tall warrior from the reptilian race known as the Thalcor, stood with his squad near the front lines. His armor was scratched, his weapon was almost out of energy, and his heart beat fast, but not from fear. He was trained for this. A soldier of honor, a warrior who never backed down. All around him, soldiers of different species fought side by side. In the Alliance, there were beings from 10 different worlds, insect-like Vorans, bird-shaped Arielians, strong four-armed Carneths, and humans. They had come together to fight the AI sovereignty, a powerful enemy made of metal, logic, and cold decisions. Caelthrix believed in the Alliance, but not in all its members, especially not humans. He saw them as soft, emotional, and unpredictable. To a Thalcor, emotions were a weakness. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the noise. A signal. It was time to move forward. "Advance!" shouted the Thalcor commander. Caelthrix rushed ahead with his squad. They crossed a broken bridge and entered an old Eltaran city, now just ruins of stone and ash. The machines were waiting. A flash of bright light exploded near Caelthrix. He didn't have time to shout. 1 second he was running, and the next, he was flying through the air. He hit the ground hard, his vision blurred. There was ringing in his ears. He tried to stand but couldn't. Then he saw it. His leg, or what was left of it. The blast had taken most of it away. Caelthrix growled in pain and frustration. He looked around. His squad had scattered. Some were already retreating. The others didn't even look back. "Help!" he said, trying to crawl behind a piece of wall. His voice was weak, but none of his fellow Thalcor returned. Not one Voran or Arielian came. He saw a Carneth soldier glance his way, then turn and run. Caelthrix couldn't believe it. He was a warrior, a proud soldier. How could they leave him? Pain filled his body. His vision began to darken. He was ready to accept his fate. Then, footsteps. Quick, light ones. A shadow dropped beside him. "Hey, don't move," said a voice. It was not Thalcor. It was human. Caelthrix blinked. A human woman knelt beside him, wearing light armor with a red cross on her shoulder. Her hands were already moving, opening a small kit. "My name's Elena Morales," she said quickly. "I'm a medic. I'm going to help you." Caelthrix tried to push her away. "Leave! Me!" he growled. "I don't need your help." Elena ignored him. She pulled out a sealant patch and pressed it against the torn part of his leg. Caelthrix howled. "I said leave!" "Yeah, and I said no," Elena said calmly. "You're not dying on my watch." Caelthrix had never felt so helpless he could barely lift his arm. Yet here was a human, small, soft-skinned, emotional, risking her life in the middle of a battlefield to save him. It made no sense. "Why?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Why are you doing this?" Elena looked at him. Her eyes were steady, kind but firm. "Because you're alive," she said. "That's enough reason for me." She finished sealing his wound, then injected a pain blocker into his arm. Caelthrix's body slowly relaxed. He could breathe again. "We need to move," Elena said, looking around. "This area's not safe." She reached under his arms and started dragging him toward a half-destroyed building. It wasn't far, but to her it was heavy work. "You're not light, you know that?" she joked, grunting with effort. Caelthrix wanted to protest, but the pain returned in waves. All he could do was hold on as she dragged him behind cover. Once they were hidden, Elena checked his wound again. She gave him water from her pack. "I sent a beacon," she said. "But the signal's weak. Might take a while before help arrives." Caelthrix stared at her. "You're human." I thought humans care only for their own. Elena smiled faintly. That's what a lot of people think. But it's not true. Not for all of us. She sat down beside him, breathing hard. Her armor was scorched. Her gloves were torn. She looked tired, but she stayed. Kyle Thrix looked up at the smoke-filled sky. For the first time in his life, he felt something strange. Not weakness, not shame. He felt grateful. I owe you, he said softly. Elena shook her head. No, you don't. You owe yourself another chance to fight. That's all. They sat in silence as the battle raged in the distance. Kael'Thrix didn't know what would happen next, but one thing had changed. His view of humans. Maybe they weren't weak. Maybe they were strong in a different way. Kael'Thrix woke to the sound of quiet humming. The battle outside had slowed. The deep shaking of the ground was gone, but distant blasts still echoed once in a while. He was inside a half-ruined building, lying on a blanket made of old cloth and metal panels. Light came through the broken roof above. He turned his head and saw the human, Elena Morales, sitting nearby. She was carefully fixing a small transmitter, wires in her hand, face full of focus. Her lips moved slightly with the rhythm of her humming. She looked peaceful, calm, strange for someone in the middle of a war. Kael'Thrix tried to sit up. A sharp pain hit his side and he let out a hiss. Elena rushed to him. "Whoa, easy," she said, helping him lie back down. "You've lost a lot of blood." I sealed the wound, but moving too fast could tear it open again. Kael'Thrix nodded slowly. How long was I unconscious? Almost a full cycle, Elena replied. About 16 hours. He looked down. Where his leg once was, there, was now a clean patch and tight bandaging. The pain was still there, but not as sharp. She had done good work. Better than many trained medics in the Alliance Army. I still don't understand, he said. Why did you stay? Elena shrugged. That's what medics do. We stay. But I'm not one of yours. I'm Thalcor. Your people don't. Trust mine. My kind doesn't trust yours either. Maybe that's the problem, Elena said. Too much talk about yours and mine. Out here, you're just someone who needed help. Kael'Thrix didn't reply. He looked away. The walls around them were cracked. The floor was uneven. Dust filled the air. But somehow, this broken place felt safer than the battlefield outside. Elena sat beside him and handed him a ration bar. It was dry and flavorless, but he accepted it. They ate in silence. After a while, Kael'Thrix asked, Where are the others? The ones who ran? I don't know, Elena said quietly. I've picked up no signals. It's like we're alone. On this side of the city, Kael'Thrix grunted. They left me. I saw, she replied. That's not right. Kael'Thrix stared at the broken floor. Among the Thalcor, weakness is shame. A warrior who falls must accept his end. Is that what you think happened? She asked. He didn't answer right away. I was ready to die. Elena looked at him carefully. But you didn't. And now you're here. Alive. He met her eyes. Because of you. No, she said. Because you're stronger than you think. Kael'Thrix didn't know how to reply. Her words felt strange, different, but not wrong. Suddenly, the small transmitter beside her beeped. Elena jumped to her feet. Signals back, she spoke into the device. This is Corporal Elena Morales. I have one injured soldier, Thalcor unit. Condition stable. Requesting evac or support. Static replied. Then silence. She tried again. Hello? Command, this is Morales. Is anyone receiving this? The static continued. She sighed and turned to Kael'Thrix. The signal's weak. Might take time to reach someone. Kael'Thrix said, We should move. Elena blinked. You can't walk. I can crawl. Elena shook her head. You need rest. I'll find help. You leave, Calthrix said firmly, and I die. Elena paused, then gave a small smile. Then I guess I'm not going anywhere. She sat down again, pulled out a small notebook, and began writing. What are you doing? Calthrix asked. Journaling, she said. I do this when I feel stuck. About me? Some of it, she said, but mostly about hope. Calthrix frowned. Hope doesn't stop a war. No, Elena said, but sometimes it keeps us moving through it. They stayed like that for a while, just two soldiers from different worlds resting in a ruined shelter, waiting for a signal that might never come. Later, as the sky darkened and the sound of machines returned in the distance, Calthrix turned to her again. You are strange, he said. I get that a lot, Elena replied with a laugh. You risked your life for me. A stranger, a warrior from a race that does not thank others easily. Well, she said, you don't have to thank me, just don't give up. Calthrix stared at the ceiling. Maybe your kind is not as soft as I thought, Elena smiled. And maybe your kind is not as cold as I thought. They both looked out at the darkening sky, the stars beginning to show through the smoke. Calthrix closed his eyes. His body was still weak, his future uncertain. But he no longer felt alone. A strange feeling warmed his chest, something he had never felt during battle. Not pride, not duty, trust. The next morning on Eltara 4, the air was thick with dust. The sky had turned orange. Something was burning far away, but the wind carried the smoke in slow waves. The city ruins were quiet, too quiet. Inside a cracked building, Calthrix opened his eyes. He had slept little. Pain still spread through his body, but it wasn't sharp like before. It was heavy now, dull. His mind was clearer. Elena Morales sat nearby, eating a protein bar. She offered one to him. Eat something. You'll need energy, she said. Calthrix took it with a nod. He didn't enjoy the dry, chalky taste, but it kept his stomach from turning. I checked the transmitter again, Elena said. Still no signal strong enough to reach base. I think the machines are jamming it. Calthrix looked outside. The roads were cracked. Rubble was everywhere. But in the far distance, he saw something. A tall metal tower, broken at the top but still standing. There, he said, pointing. That tower might still have a working antenna. Or at least better. Range! Elena followed his gaze and frowned. It's far. We'd have to pass through 3 ruined blocks. Calthrix started to sit up. Then we go now. You can't walk, she said. I'll crawl, he replied without emotion. Elena stared at him. She didn't argue. Instead, she packed her small bag and helped him strap some armor to his chest. Then I guess I'll crawl with you, she said with a small smile. Calthrix looked surprised. Why would you do that? Because, she said, I'm not leaving you behind. They began the journey slowly. Elena made a sled from a broken door panel and tied straps to it. She helped Calthrix lie on it, then pulled him across the ground. He helped by pushing himself forward with his arms. It was hard. The ground was rough. Broken glass and sharp stones tore at Elena's gloves. She sweated, her face red and dusty. Calthrix tried not to show pain, but every bump sent fire through his leg. They moved between walls and broken vehicles, hiding whenever they heard strange humming sounds. The machines. Sometimes they saw flying drones in the sky. Elena stopped and covered them with a silver blanket that blended into the environment. The drones passed without noticing them. Hours went by. They stopped behind an old transport truck. Elena gave Calthrix water and rested against the side of the vehicle. You should leave me here, Calthrix said. Go alone. You can, Move faster! Elena didn't answer at first. She pulled off her helmet and wiped her face with a cloth. Then she looked at him. I don't care about faster. I care about getting us both out of here. Kale Thrix looked away. My people wouldn't do the same. Maybe they would, she said. Or maybe they've forgotten how. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth sat between them like a heavy stone. They moved again. Soon the air changed. It became colder, quieter. A mist rolled in. Through the ruins, Elena narrowed her eyes. Something's wrong. What is it? Kale Thrix asked. She pointed at the road ahead. 5 fallen soldiers lay in the dust. Different species. Weapons still in hand. They weren't killed by the machines, she whispered. No burns, no holes, no signs of blast damage. Kale Thrix tensed. They gave up. Elena nodded slowly. They were stranded, maybe like us, but they stopped trying. She knelt beside one of them, a Voran soldier, and closed his eyes gently. Kale Thrix watched her silently. Then from a nearby building, a soft voice called out, Help! Please! Elena stood up quickly and aimed her scanner toward the sound. I'm getting life signs, she said. Kale Thrix stayed behind as she carefully entered the building. Minutes later, she returned, with 3 survivors. A young human soldier limping with a bruised leg, an older bird-like Arielian with a torn wing, and a silent Karneth with burns on one side of his chest. They looked tired, hungry, broken. Found them hiding in the basement, Elena said. No food, no comms. They thought the machines would find them if they moved. Kale Thrix stared at them. He saw fear in their eyes, the kind that came from being forgotten. He sat up straighter. You are not forgotten, he said. We are still alive. We moved together. The Karneth looked at him, surprised. You're Thalcor. Why do you care? Because a human reminded me that life is worth saving, Kale Thrix said. The survivors looked at Elena. She just shrugged. Team effort. Together they continued the crawl. Elena made a second sled from another broken panel for the Arielian. The Karneth carried the young human on his back. Kale Thrix led with his arms, crawling like a soldier who had never fallen. They became a strange group, not strong, not fast, but alive. At last, they reached the base of the tall tower. It was damaged, but parts still stood. A small terminal near the base flickered with weak light. We can boost the signal from here, Elena said. The Karneth helped her climb up, while Kale Thrix and the others kept watch. The wind grew stronger. After 10 minutes, her voice came. Through the speaker. Signal sent. I think it worked? Kale Thrix looked up. The sun was setting behind her, and for a moment, she looked like a figure from a story. A guardian, a spark of hope. He smiled. A small, rare smile. We are not done yet, he said to himself, but we are no longer alone. The message had been sent. The signal from the tower flashed once more, then faded. Elena Morales climbed down slowly, her arms sore and legs shaking. She landed beside Kale Thrix, who was resting on a flat stone. Signal reached command? He asked. I think so, she said. But I don't know how long it will take. Could be hours, maybe a whole day. Around them, the city was covered in a thick gray fog. The sun was hidden behind clouds of smoke and dust. Buildings leaned like tired giants, and the air smelled like rust and ashes. The survivors stayed close. The young human soldier, Private Wren, the Arielian flyer with the torn wing, Kira Len, and the quiet Karneth warrior, Borek. They had grown quiet since leaving the shelter. Something about the fog made everything feel colder, even though the air wasn't freezing. We should move to a safer place, Kale Thrix said. Too open here, Elena agreed. There's a supply post marked on my map, half a kilometer west. If it's still standing, we might find food, medicine, or something useful. They started moving again. Elena and Boric took turns pulling. The sleds, while Kael'thrix crawled in the front, eyes alert. His body hurt with every move, but he didn't complain. Pain was now just part of the journey. As they moved, shadows passed above them. Machines, flying scouts, scanning the streets. They stopped under broken roofs, hid in doorways, and waited in silence until the humming passed. Once, a machine hovered, so close that they could hear the soft clicking of its sensors. Everyone held their breath. Ren closed his eyes. Kira-Len whispered a quiet prayer in her language. Then the drone moved on. "We were lucky," Boric said in a low voice. "Luck is not enough," Kael'thrix replied. "We need purpose." They finally reached the old supply post. The outside was damaged, but inside the shelves were still standing. Elena pushed open the door carefully. "It's empty," she said after looking around, "but still safe. No traps, no signs of movement." They all entered and sat down. Elena and Kira-Len checked the small back room and found a few emergency rations and one working medical kit. Not much, but enough for a night. Kael'thrix took a seat near the wall and looked at the others. "Tell me," he said, "how did each of you get stranded?" Ren spoke first. "We were part of a patrol team, got separated when the machines attacked. The rest of my team didn't make it. I ran until I found the others hiding." Kira-Len nodded. "I was flying above the battle when I was hit. Lost control, crashed through a window. The wing hasn't healed since." Boric simply said, "I stayed behind to cover the retreat. Then the retreat never came." Kael'thrix looked at Elena. "And you?" She smiled tiredly. "I was assigned to the backline medical station. When the machines broke through, I stayed behind to help the wounded. That's when I found you." They sat in silence for a while. The fog outside thickened. Even sound seemed softer. "Have you ever felt like the world forgot you?" Ren asked quietly. No one answered right away. Then Kael'thrix said, "I have. I felt it the moment my own squad left me behind." Ren nodded slowly. "But I do not feel that way now," Kael'thrix added, "because now we are together." Elena stood. "We'll make it through. We just have to hold on." Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the supply post's back door. Everyone froze. Kael'thrix reached for a metal pipe. Boric gripped a broken energy rifle. Elena moved to the door and pressed her ear against it. A voice whispered from outside, "Please, let me in. I'm not one of them. Please." She opened the door carefully. A small alien stepped inside. His skin was pale blue and his clothes were torn. He looked tired, hungry, and afraid. "My name is Tivik," he said. "I was part of the repair team. Got lost when the machines came. I've been hiding for days." "Are you armed?" Kael'thrix asked. "No," Tivik said, shaking his head. "Then, come in," Elena said. "You're safe here." They gave him food and water. He ate slowly, as if unsure it was real. "Why did you help me?" Tivik asked. "You don't know me." Elena gave a small smile. "That's not the point." Kael'thrix spoke next. "The point is, we don't leave people behind." Tivik looked around at the group. "You're all from different species." "I didn't think that was possible." Boric spoke for the first time in a long while. Maybe it wasn't. But it is now. The group rested that night in silence. No loud laughter, no stories, just quiet comfort in each other's company. They had all been broken in different ways, but somehow, being together made the pain feel lighter. As the others slept, Kael'thrix looked out through a broken window. The fog moved like slow waves, but in the distance he saw something, a soft blinking light. "Elena," he whispered. She woke up and crawled over. He pointed. "There, look." She followed his gaze and smiled. "It's a beacon signal," she said. "It's real. Rescue is coming." Kael'thrix let out a slow breath. For the first time in days, the weight in his chest eased. They weren't forgotten. And now, they had a chance. The soft blinking light in the distance was their hope. Elena Morales stood beside the broken window of the supply post, watching the signal flash again and again. It was faint, but it was there, steady and real. A rescue beacon. They heard. Us, she whispered. Behind her, Cale Thrix lifted his head. He had been resting, but not sleeping. His body was still weak, but his eyes were sharp. "Are you sure it's ours?" he asked. "I am," Elena said. "The pattern matches Alliance code. It's a pickup point, probably a small drop team or evac unit." She turned to the others. Private Wren, Kira Len, Borek, and Tivik all looked up, hope flickering in their tired eyes. "We have to get there," she continued. "It's not far, maybe 1.5 kilometers. But we need to leave before the fog clears. The machines might start scanning again once the air is clear." Cale Thrix nodded. "Then we leave now." Elena helped him sit up. "You sure you're ready?" "I don't want to crawl," he said firmly. "Strap me to Borek's back, I'll cover the rear." Borek, the strong Karnath, didn't hesitate. "I'll carry him. He has carried us all in other ways." Elena was touched by his words, and Cale Thrix gave a slow nod. "Thank you." They packed quickly. There wasn't much to carry, just the last of their food, 2 medical kits, a weak energy rifle, and a small map. They moved as a unit, slow, careful, and quiet. The city was still under the fog, but the sky above it was starting to turn blue. Light rays touched the broken buildings, turning gray stone into gold for a brief moment. Elena led the way, checking corners and scanning the road ahead. She had a good sense of direction and could read the map better than most. Wren stayed close to her, ready to help if needed. Kira Len moved behind, watching the sky. Tivik stayed near the middle, alert but silent. Borek carried Cale Thrix with strong arms, one hand free to steady his rifle. Cale Thrix scanned behind them, his sharp eyes watching for movement. They moved from building to building, staying in the shadows, stepping around rubble and ducking under collapsed walls. Halfway to the signal, a sudden noise made them freeze. Clicking sound, soft, steady, mechanical. Elena dropped to one knee. Drone. Close. They rushed into an old stone courtyard and hid behind a collapsed statue. The drone hovered nearby, scanning the area with glowing eyes. Cale Thrix whispered, "It's searching for life signs." Elena slowly took out a thin metal cloth, a signal-shielding blanket, and threw it over the group. They held still. Breathing slowly, the drone paused, then moved on. They waited for 1 full minute before moving again. "Close call," Kira Len whispered. They reached the final stretch, an open road between 2 rows of broken buildings. At the end of that road, the beacon shone from the top of a small hill. The air shimmered around it, meaning a cloaked evac pod was nearby. "Once we pass that road, we're safe," Elena said. They moved forward, but just as they crossed halfway, the sky lit up with a sudden flash. A scouting machine, shaped like a silver bird, swooped down and fired a flare. Not a weapon, but a signal. "It saw us!" Wren shouted. Behind them, another drone appeared. Then 2 more. "They're calling the patrol units," Cale Thrix said. "We have minutes." Elena turned to the group. "Run! Get to the beacon!" "No. Time to argue," Cale Thrix said. "Borek, drop me. I'll stay and cover you." "No," Borek replied. Cale Thrix looked him in the eye. "You must, or we all fall." Elena stepped forward. "Then I'm staying with you." Cale Thrix shook his head. "You've done more than enough. They need you." But Elena didn't move. "I'm not leaving you behind." Cale Thrix stared at her. Then slowly he smiled. "Very well," he said. "Then we hold together." Borek hesitated, then gently placed Cale Thrix on the ground and passed him a spare rifle. "Come back to us," he said quietly. Elena took cover, behind a broken wall. Kale Thrix dragged himself beside her. 3 drones, 2 coming from the left, 1 from the front, Kale Thrix reported. "I'll take the front. You watch the left," she said. They waited. Then, suddenly, a bright beam of light broke through the fog from above. A drop ship! It appeared from thin air, decloaking right above the beacon. Its side door opened, and soldiers in white and blue armor rushed out. "Human soldiers, Alliance medics and retrieval team," one of them shouted. "This way!" Ren and the others waved and ran toward them. The drones turned. 2 changed direction to chase the running group. Elena stood up and fired a flare toward them, drawing their attention. "Over here!" she shouted. The drones turned back and aimed at her. Before they could fire, 2 bursts of blue energy came from behind. The human dropship fired its onboard cannon. The drones exploded in midair, shattered into sparks. The last drone, the one closest to Elena and Kale Thrix, turned to flee. But Kale Thrix raised his rifle and fired 1 clean shot. The drone fell, silent and still. Then everything went quiet. Moments later, 2 medics rushed to Kale Thrix and Elena. "Are you injured?" one asked. Kale Thrix smiled, weak but proud. "We're ready to go home." The soldiers helped him up, carefully placing him on a stretcher. Elena walked beside him, holding his hand as they climbed into the drop ship. Inside, the others were already seated, safe, smiling, and alive. As the ship rose into the sky, Kale Thrix looked down at the battlefield below. Then he looked at Elena. "She saved me," he said to the others, "when I was broken, when no one else came." Elena gave a soft smile. "You saved yourself, Kale. I just reminded you how." The stars above Eltaratha 4 were peaceful now. The machines were gone. The battle was over. The Alliance had won, not only with weapons, but with courage, trust, and sacrifice. Inside the medical station on the orbiting recovery ship, Unity's hand, Kale Thrix sat in a quiet room, his new metal leg resting on the floor. The engineers had done a fine job. It didn't look like his old one, but it worked. He had started walking again, slowly and with help. More important than the leg, though, was what had changed inside him. He no longer felt shame. He no longer felt forgotten. He had been saved, not by his own kind, but by someone completely different. A human. A medic named Elena Morales. Kyle Thrix looked out the window at the stars. His scales still bore marks from the battlefield. He would carry those forever. But now he saw them not as wounds, but as memories. A knock came at the door. It was Elena. She entered with a smile, holding 2 metal cups. "Brought you something warm. It's not Thalcor tea, but the nurses say it helps with recovery." Kale Thrix took the cup and nodded. "Thank you." He sipped the drink. It was bitter, but strangely calming. "You're walking better," Elena said, sitting beside him. "I practice every morning," he replied. "The new leg feels strong." She smiled. "You'll be running again in no time." They sat together in silence for a moment. The room was quiet, filled with soft beeping from nearby monitors and the low hum of the ship's engines. Elena finally asked, "What will you do next? When you return to your people?" Kale Thrix looked down at his hands. "I don't know. I left the battlefield as a broken warrior, but I return with new eyes. I have seen things my kind refuses to see." "Like what?" He turned to her. "That strength is not only in armor or weapons. It is also in kindness, in staying behind when others run, in helping someone with no reason to." She nodded. "I think that's what makes us human." Then, "Perhaps," Kale Thrix said, "I have learned a little humanity." Elena laughed softly. "That might be the highest compliment we've ever received from a Thalcor." They sat in silence again. Then a voice came over the ship's speaker. Attention. Ceremony in the main hall begins in 30 minutes. All invited survivors. Please report. Elena stood. Come on! They want to thank the rescue teams and survivors. You should be there. Kyle-Thrix hesitated. I do not enjoy medals or speeches. But you earned both, she said gently. And you're not alone this time. Kyle-Thrix stood, slowly but proudly, and walked with her to the hall. The main hall was filled with officers, doctors, soldiers, and crew from every species in the Alliance. Some wore dress uniforms, others had scars and crutches. But they all stood together. The commander of the Unity's hand stepped forward. He spoke with a strong voice, but kind eyes. We gather not only to honor victory, he said, but to honor the spirit of unity. In the darkest days of the battle, when the fog of war covered the skies and the machines hunted all life, small lights remained. Small acts of bravery, kindness, and trust. He pointed toward the stage. 2 such lights stand before you now. Elena and Kyle-Thrix were called forward. Elena walked with steady steps. Kyle-Thrix followed, every step firm, his metal leg clicking softly on the floor. The commander continued. Corporal Elena Morales did not see a wounded alien. She saw a life worth saving. Kyle-Thrix of the Thalcor did not remain bitter or lost. He rose again, not only as a warrior, but as a leader to those who had given up. The room was quiet. Then the commander said, This is what the Alliance is meant to be. He placed a silver badge on Elena's uniform, then turned to Kyle-Thrix and placed a crystal medallion on his chest. Thank you, he said to them both. Kyle-Thrix stepped forward. He looked at the crowd, full of faces, human, alien, young, old, and he spoke. I was raised to believe that only strength brings honor, that asking for help is weakness, that showing pain is shame. He paused. But I was wrong. He looked at Elena. One human changed what I believed. She came for me when no one else would. She stayed when I had nothing to offer. She gave me hope. Not with speeches, but with action. He turned back to the crowd. I do not speak today as a Thalcor. I speak as someone who learned something new. The strongest soldiers are not the ones who stand alone. The strongest are the ones who stand together. The room filled with quiet applause, soft, but deep with respect. After the ceremony, many came to shake hands, share words, and offer thanks. Kiralen, Ren, Borek, and even Tivik were there, smiling. Each one had survived. Each one had changed. Later, on the observation deck, Kyle-Thrix and Elena stood side by side once more. He turned to her. You didn't just mend my wounds. You mended my faith. Elena smiled. And you reminded me why I became a medic. They looked out at the stars. The war had left scars on them both. But now, those scars were not marks of loss. They were marks of survival, of friendship, of something deeper than fear. Together they had crossed the fire. And now, together, they walked into the light.